What's up, everybody? This is David from Paradyme, where now equals tomorrow. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing rule number 10, titled Be Precise in Your Speech, by Dr. Jordan B. Peterson and his book, 12 Rules for Life. If you need anything, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel, and any information that you might need will be in the description below. Please follow us on all of our social media, and we just really hope that you enjoy this episode.
Bread is of little use to the man who has betrayed his soul.
Maybe you're the protagonist in your story, but like there's a million other people.
All right, welcome to the Paradyme podcast. We are reading the 12 Rules for Life by Dr. Jordan B. Peterson. We're on chapter 10, Be Precise in Your Speech.
Whoa, is that the photo that's on here?
Yeah,
How you know that? How you know him? How you know who that is?
So we'll talk about what do you guys think of the illustration for this book?
It's an apple face.
I don't know if they can't see it.
I think they can.
What do you guys think it means?
He looks like a clown. Even though he's a businessman, it looks like he's got an oversized clown nose. So he may look respectable from the outside, but he's still just a fucking clown.
I'm a clown. I'm a clown. Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't really. Even the background looks weird to me. Like I know it's clouds, but why is it drawn in like pencil like that? Like I don't know. Looks incomplete.
I think it's related to the dragon. Like, look how big he is.
Oh yeah.
The dragon?
Yeah, where like Billy Bixby tells his mom, hey, there's a dragon in my room. It's like the size of a cat. She says there's no dragon. He's like, all right, there's no dragon. And then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger
It's like we're feeding
until
it.
he's like, there's a fucking dragon.
Just wants to be noticed.
She's vacuuming outside.
All right, vacuuming the grass real quick.
All right, David,
we're
tell us the real thing.
Well, it's a painting by a surrealist artist named Rene Magritte. That's an oil painting from 1964. And the meaning, I looked it up right now. Christians commonly take the phrase Son of Man in this passage to refer to Jesus himself rather than humanity in general. When Jesus predicts his death, I don't know, some other stuff, but it's a self-portrait of himself.
Okay.
That could mean something, being precise in your speech. Maybe it's speaking to yourself, something like that.
Bless you. Bless you.
So it doesn't mean anything for real? Like, it doesn't say clearly what it means?
All I know is that it's a surrealist painting, and usually surrealism is sort of painting realistic things in an unrealistic way. So if you look at it, like, you would never see an apple floating in front of a guy. So like if you look at the oil painting, this looks more of like a cartoon thing because it's drawn in pencil. But if you look at the actual painting, it's
And they said it's something to do
like
with Christianity. 'Cause you said
it's called the Son of Man.
so. Is it because he's eating the apple, which like made us like fucking not gods anymore?
Could be. If you look at his elbows too, the left arm, it looks like his elbow is the opposite way. Even it shows up kind of in the picture here too. Okay. So it would be surrealism in the way that it's a realistic looking photo, but his elbow would never be like that. You know what I mean?
Turn that off.
I think that's me. So yeah, it's just pretty interesting. I think I didn't really draw any conclusions from what the stuff we talked about in this chapter specifically to a surrealist painting, but it's pretty interesting though that he used this. And those kids are there again. I think those kids are just like a recurring element in this.
I think they're
Look at their size.
They're looking at a museum. True.
What do you guys think about this chapter though, in general?
I liked it towards the end. The beginning was very I guess it's almost like, it was giving us context to where he was leading it. Like we think things have meaning, but realistically we define the meaning by like what it can provide for us. Nothing really has meaning unless it serves a purpose. So I guess I get the context, like the whole like first few chapters, but it was really like, okay, let's get to the chapter. Like let's start. You know what I mean? Once he started talking about like what's the name, Bexy,
Billy Bixby.
Yeah, Billy Bixby, the dragon in the, and that from there, like it really starts to I start to like the chapter a lot.
Yeah,
I thought that this chapter, it almost felt like exactly where we left off last time when we started talking about on your situation about like things need to be acknowledged, and if you let them, like if you don't acknowledge them, they get worse. It was weird. It's like it fit perfectly to what we were just talking about.
I drew a lot of conclusions. Like every time I read stuff like this, it's like self-revealing to myself, and even the things that we talk about, it's like, okay, like that makes sense. Like even, past relationship stuff, I was like drawing a lot of conclusions, like parallels between me and an example that he gave of like the woman who found out her husband was cheating on him or her or something. And a lot of questions got raised and chaos ensued with that whole thing, So
and the only reason they got there is because they just like decided not to acknowledge what was going on.
Exactly.
Let it pester. And once something finally did happen, it was like everything that built up in like the bank account of bad things was just fucking cashed out right then and there.
Everything. Yeah. Everything. It came flooding through.
Where maybe you could have dealt with it like payments at a time, like $20.
Being precise in your speech too. Like that's where that comes in. Speaking your mind, not letting that little feeling grow.
Yeah, right.
Because if it goes on and on and on and on,
it's okay.
It's
okay.
I really like this metaphor because it reminded me of something that happened to me when I was still at home. But it's like we just perceive a car as a thing, like it's a car, like, and like we really don't think about like all the internal parts that go into it to make it work
until it fails.
And then once it fails, we're like, what the? And then all of a sudden we're like faced with the fact that we actually know very little about how our car actually works, but we get in it every day. And then it's just like...
And then we have to face the consequence of sitting with someone that
fixing it. You're faced with the consequence, but like maybe if it was a maintenance thing and you would have just like, routinely changed the oil, changed the brakes, routinely did checkups, the car wouldn't have broke down. But because you decided not to like make sure the car's okay, once it fell apart bad on you. And I feel like it's like with relationships, we stop looking at like our partner as like someone we love or someone that needs like attention. We just look at them as like a thing. And then once we like stop like changing the oil, making sure their tire pressure's right, yada yada, the fucking car breaks down. And then we're like, what the fuck is going on with this thing?
Yeah, that's how I kind of took the beginning of this chapter too.
That was bars.
The 261, it says the world reveals itself to us as something to utilize and something to navigate through, not as something that merely is.
I like that highlighted.
You know what I mean? Like that just, to me, that really identifies with this, like it ties everything together and it shows that like we really give everything its purpose if it comes to a person or like a car.
Yeah.
Like we can look into the car, we can study like how cars operate. I guess it will give more meaning to why we love that car more. Sure. Or like if we look into our girlfriends or boyfriends, like it will give meaning to why I love that person more than this guy or girl. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, they give you navigation. They give you a sense of utilization. They're not just a thing anymore. They're not invisible to you. Right. They exist now. You know what I mean? So I think that's how the car thing too is like your car broke down. Now it exists. Now you see all the shit that goes into
you
your
see
car.
all the parts. You're like, I don't know what anything does. I actually started to think about it.
Yeah.
Is this the chapter where he talks about that humans are the only thing, like even robots can't do it, that we can be like a chair, a stump, and a rock? What do they all have? Like, why are they all in the same category? Yeah. And it's like C. I tested on somebody at work. This guy was sitting on a bucket, and I was like, what does a bucket, a stump, and a beanbag all have in common? And he was like, you can sit on them? I was like, yeah.
Damn,
and I was like,
crazy.
See? I was like, we're the only people that could do that. If you tie this thing into a computer, they'd be like, I don't know why they're in a category. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. Damn, that's interesting.
Do you think, it just kind of like on a topic we were just talking about, but do you think maybe women are so determined to have the label of you're my man or I'm your girl because of that same fact with like the car? If you just look at it as a car, like, or if you just look at it as this is my man, I don't have to look for the individual pieces of the puzzle, so I can just kind of focus on the car.
As far as in like within the man?
Not, well, that too, but like the dynamic between them. If you just kind of think of like, if this is my girl, I don't have I could just see it in relationships where like, okay, now this is my girl. I don't have to worry about so much of the internal components.
As far as myself or that person?
The relationship.
I see what you're saying. Like once you put the label on, you're like, maybe all the connections I need to make now to keep that person interested in me, I can maybe slack off a little bit because like I I already got the keys of the car.
The car maintenance. I don't have to do it anymore because it's just.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I don't have
it's
to do
almost
the
like a
maintenance
comfort
now.
level, sort of like you get comfortable because now you don't have to really.
It's no longer a rental; it's yours.
Yeah. Right. So you don't have to worry about insurance. You don't have to worry about taking it to get maintained. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that
That's
sits
a
in.
great-
I think that sits in men and women. I think men and women.
Right.
Yeah. Because
That's just where I was seeing it.
yeah, definitely. That's great. That's a great analysis.
Yeah, I see a guy like that. They quote unquote hate their old lady. It's like, why do you hate them? Like, don't you love them? You're married.
Right.
They're like, she's such a bitch. It's like, she's fucking Deborah.
But it makes sense though. From a guy's perspective, it makes sense though why guys would think like that, because women control the power of sex. Like if men can't get enough sex and they actually land a girl, they land a wife, they're gonna be comfortable with that woman because it's like, I don't feel like putting myself out there anymore. I don't feel like chasing anymore. Like you're giving me that comfortability, so now I don't have to worry about all the parts that go into this shit. Like,
And that goes both ways. I think early in the book he talks about how the guy who can't get a lot of stuff, he settles for what he can get, so he latches onto it. So, but maybe a guy who can just go fishing and get some pussy, like he's not too worried about putting a label on anything. He can go get another rental next week. So
yeah.
A weekend girlfriend.
Weekend girlfriend, yeah.
All right. So what did you guys think the topic of the chapter was?
I thought acknowledgement, like keeping up with maintenance, maybe.
Okay.
My biggest takeaway was speaking up, using your voice, like kind of like the previous chapter. I feel like these chapters are in line, like one kind of like leads into the other. Speaking your mind, and then it, like you said, like addressing certain issues or problems, or like knowing the components within a thing to reap the benefits of that thing. I think it reminds me of the golden goose metaphor in the first.
PPC?
Yeah. Yeah.
PCPP or something.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Production
The
versus
goose,
production.
right?
Referring back to the 7
Yeah,
habits.
P/PC.
Right. Like you taking care of the goose.
Because you're getting the eggs.
Yeah.
That's
if you say fuck the goose, then like
You kind of
you're gonna lose the eggs. Like those are the beneficial like fruits. Like that's what you need. So I drew that conclusion when we were talking about that stuff.
Yeah,
That's a good way to put it.
like I said at the beginning of the chapter, it's showing us that like us as humans, we don't identify with things until they provide value, and then once they provide value, how he starts to dive into the Bexy kid or the Bixie, and then also the marriage, the woman and the man, and how she falls off, and he's talking about all her friends are blaming him, like how could any human do this? But he's also asking the question, what if like all these what if something that you were doing actually was causing this, you losing attention to the attentive, like appealing to sex, and you not giving that enough attention. Maybe he wanted more and you didn't even ask him. You know what I mean? Would you say that's not a part of it, or are you just claiming that he had everything to do with it? And I think that's the society we live in. But as far as this chapter, I would just say like understanding we see things as a thing until it becomes valuable. And also if we want to keep that value in our life, we have to maintain it.
Yeah, I mean, because he talks about it too in that where he's like, maybe she was happy that like he was leaving, she had an excuse. Maybe she didn't want to have sex, so like and maybe she wanted to be the widow that, or
maybe she was subconsciously
divorcee, that she's like, oh, like my life's like my husband to run off me, so she gets like the support from the community. Like maybe that's what she wants. It's better than the life she has now.
All right, but the topic I kind of thought it was on the last 282. The topic I have here: no one can discuss have a discussion about everything. Instead, you can say this exact precise thing. This is what's making me unhappy. This exact precise thing. This is what I want as an alternative, although I am open to suggestions if they are specific. This exact precise thing. That is what you could deliver so that I will stop making your life and mine miserable. But to do that, you have to think, what is wrong exactly? What do I want exactly? And you must speak forthrightly and call forth the habitable world from chaos.
Yeah.
This reminded me so much of what you were saying earlier when Claire was like, hey, the vibes are off. And you wouldn't answer because you're like, no, be precise about it. Why were the vibes off? She's like, just everything. You're like, No,
That's what he says in the book. He says everything.
He goes,
It's like-
everything's cool. Yeah. No. What's really
Yeah,
what's really wrong?
That's literally like
precise.
It's crazy that we were already talking about like how everything's kind of just following in structure. Like he talks about that where people want to say everything is wrong, but not everything is wrong.
No. Be precise.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So so that's very interesting.
It's very, but I think people are reluctant to even like they want to say it just to say it, but then when you're like, well, you're having anxiety, okay, well, what can you pinpoint it? Like just asking that question, people are like, like yeah, but I don't want to. Yeah, so I'm like,
and
bruh,
back to the maintenance thing. You know, I hate when people say that. Like I'm having anxiety. Like you said, what
does that mean?
What does that mean to you? Maybe I live in anxiety. I don't know. Fucking, what does that mean?
Yeah, like are you even able to identify what your anxiety is, or do you just kind of live in it and can't identify it?
Yeah,
I will say I wouldn't say it's uncommon for people to not know where their anxiety comes from, but it's identifiable once you search deep enough.
That's what I was going to say. That's the biggest difference is some people have anxiety, absolutely, but there's some people that just don't. It's like willful blindness. They'll continue to live in it because it makes them feel like the victim, and they'll like people will succumb to their victimness rather than being like, I need to stand up for my shit. I have this anxiety. I need to deal with it. Like,
well, it's talking about like pinpoint it. You know, like we have a friend, and it's like, oh, they haven't eaten all day. Hey, I don't feel good when I haven't eaten all day either. It's like, is that what's your call anxiety? Are you just hungry? Oh, you've had 5 coffees today. Have you just drinking too much caffeine? You know, but like we just say anxiety, like any sort of like feeling vibes off. We're like, I'm having anxiety. Well,
yeah,
maybe you just fucking need to eat an apple.
Bro, I literally.
That makes sense.
Yeah, dude. At work, people who are like overweight and they drink like Narrowness for breakfast and like eat like gas station breakfast. When they get mad, they get fucking heated in the morning, and I'm like, hey, bro, I'm like super relaxed. Went for a big run yesterday.
Yeah.
They're yelling. I'm like, hey, guy. Let's just take a step back and just relax a second. And they're all like, where's my Marlboro Red at? It's like, probably
just fuck. Yeah. So it's cool though, because like I think us as a unit, we do pretty good at collectively showing that there's like a healthier, I guess, lifestyle. And it's just the little things, little habits that we're working on that kind of make other interests and other people start doing those things. Like, say she hasn't been drinking as much caffeine and she's like, I feel good. And I'm like, honestly, say, you look better. Like we're having you don't seem as anxious, you know? And it's up to you if you want to keep that feeling going, you know? Yeah. So that's cool. But
I like how you went about it though, because I think I've brought it up before. HALT.
HALT.
So yeah, halt. When she was having anxiety, the first thing you went to was hunger, right? So it's HALT. It's hunger, anger, loneliness, and tiredness. Right. And so you were like, are you hungry? No. Okay. Are you angry? No. Okay. Are you lonely? No. Okay. You must be tired? No. Okay. Then it's not inside of those. Then there's
never heard of that. Horny.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, those are the big 4.
How come this is the first time I'm hearing this? That was good.
That was pretty good. Yeah.
That's like, it's one thing that I kind of live by is before making any decisions, make sure
you have all those like checked first.
You're not hungry, you're not angry, you're not lonely, and you're not tired.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's fire.
I would say a lot of the society is kind of like
when I'm hungry, I'm fucking pissed.
Yeah. I'm not in a good mood when I'm hungry. I can't even think forward. I go, nothing's moving until this happens.
And I don't give a fuck. It's like my brain is like asshole mode. Like if you try talking to me and it's not something, I'm just like, I don't give a fuck right now.
Hey bro, you know what? I needed a chicken sandwich.
I'm like, I'm looking at your face right now, but all I see is an idiot sandwich.
I was craving some butterfish.
I do have a quote that I just wanted to mention. I like it. We don't have to really talk about it. It's in the subsection, you and I are simply one when the world behaves.
Yes.
It's towards the end of that subheading. It says, we perceive a very narrow slice of a casually interconnected matrix, although we strive with all our might to avoid being confronted by knowledge of that narrowness. It's almost like thinking about the car thing. It's like we enjoy the car, we like the car for the surface value. We don't know what the fuck is in that car. We're going to avoid that at all costs. Once it starts to kick in the engine light, that narrowness starts to really narrow in. And then now we're like, I don't even know where the fuck to do with this. Like, I can't even drive the car. It's not even valuable anymore to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then we start to get like we start to avoid that confrontation. Like, oh, fuck, I don't want to have to go. What do I say to the mechanic? Like, I don't even know shit about my car. You know what I mean? Like,
you don't jug you.
So, yeah. So it's like, I believe that a lot of us in everything, because we're not knowledgeable in everything. So
that's, no. I like the before that section, the sentence before you and I are simply only when the world behaves. It is then that the walled garden we archetypally inhabit reveals its hidden but ever-present snakes. I guess the preceding paragraph, it talks about making like then the more complex world that was always there, invisible and conveniently ignored, makes its presence known. So when like the snakes reveal themselves, when things get when things reveal themselves in your life, it's kind of fucked up sometimes.
And going off that, it's like exactly what we were talking about earlier, and kind of I was thinking about you just because what we last talked about, but it's like when things break down, what has been ignored rushes in. When things are no longer specified with precision, the walls crumble and chaos makes its presence known. When we've been careless and let things slide, what we have refused to attend to gathers itself up, adopts a serpentine form, and strikes, often at the worst possible moment. So it's like, we keep letting things slide, or like, whatever, dude, you know, like, blah, 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 blah. And then finally, at the worst possible moment, that's when things like, you know, your car breaks down, your girl cheats on you, fucking.
And all of a sudden, like, I really like the way he, like, perceived, like, he talks about all these things that follow when something reveals itself. Cheating gets revealed. It's like you start questioning everything. Well, at least for me, like, you know, I was like, am I this? Did I do this? Like, is it all these questions and things in my head just like flooded with like chaos, pure and utter chaos. And I connected a lot with the examples in this book. So it's pretty cool. I like when he talks about like the word emergency. It's literally emergence. Like emergence, like things reveal themselves. Sure. The shit that's been ignored, or just all of a sudden is like, boom. You know, your health isn't an emergency until fucking your heart starts fucking up, and then all of a sudden it's an emergency.
Yeah, that's why I like that story, the marriage, like where he talks about the man and the wife, like towards like I think it's the middle of it, but he's like, you're stuck in a marriage like the two proverbial cats in a barrel, bound by the oath that last in theory until one or both of you die. The oath is there to make you take a damn situation seriously. Do you really want the same petty annoyance tormenting you every single day of your marriage for the decades of existence? And I put questions next to that. I put, is it little or is it laziness? You know what I mean? Because he's talking about like, stop ignoring the things that should be talked about. Like that's just, if it's not laziness, then it's you afraid of confrontation, and that person might leave you because you're confronting something that's making you unhappy or uncomfortable, or you don't like it, and you need to discuss that needs to be talked about. And then everything emerges, and it's already on the brink of collapse, and once it emerges, there's no going back.
I think that was my problem with like my past relationship, is that maybe my ex wasn't a very confrontational person because of like her past home life with her parents, her family. They were very controlling, like suck the air out of the room. And I have like a stronger personality. So maybe she never confronted me about what was bothering her. And then like, it just built up until like, it's like resentment. And then it's like the balloon pops because like too much built up, you know? Yeah. But it's like, maybe it could have been handled if you were just like, hey, when you do this, it bothers me. You know, it's like, oh shit, I had no idea. You know?
That's
some people know though. Some people know. It's very manipulative too and shit.
Yeah, but you know, like for example, when someone bothers me, I'm like, yo, don't do that. That's not cool.
But yeah, you're very vocal about like, you know what I mean? Very confrontational-esque, I'd say.
Yeah, I am. Like sometimes it's fun to do that.
Yeah. Were you gonna say, Jay though? Good job.
This all kind of comes back to the conflict styles. The person isn't doing it not because they're lazy, but because they want to avoid the conflict. And he talks about it. They're supplementing the peace now for the explosion later. So like I would say in my own personal past relationship, it was avoidance. And when avoidance couldn't be done, it would be accommodation. So I would just be like, whatever you want, just shut up. You know what I mean? And so I've learned to kind of address that in current relationships or friendships. That's something I'm working on personally. But yeah, I mean, I see it even in my own household. My mom doesn't like conflict. She'll text me about something. It's like, nah, get your ass down here.
That should bother me.
And talk to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I make rules, like when I'm in a relationship, I go, anything serious, it's not to be done like, over text or over the phone. Like it needs to be an in-person conversation.
Agreed.
But I will say, my ex was like, that's not fair. She goes, because you win enough face-to-face like conflict. She goes, I need text so I can like think about what I have to say.
Write it out and then bring it to me.
And I was like, that is interesting. Because I mean, I can see that. I can just be like, no, we're fixing it right now. And then like I would lead the conversation, even though it's her problem.
Yeah, I think it brings real power to people that like can actually deal in accountability rather than like, damn, this is your fault and you're doing this because you want this and nothing's my fault. And whether you're saying it or not, like you're stating that it's not your fault, you're blaming the other person. But there's a part where he said maybe your relationship is ending because you are a bad person. It's likely, at least in part, isn't it? Having the argument necessary to solve a real problem therefore necessitates willingness to confront two forms of miserable and dangerous potential simultaneously. Chaos, the potential frugality of the relationship, of all relationships, of life itself, and hell, the fact that you and your partner could each be the person bad enough to ruin everything with your laziness and spite. There's every motivation to avoid, but it doesn't help. It's like if you just take two different relationships and this relationship takes accountability for their interdependency, for their independent, and then when they come together, their cohort where they work together, it's like at least they can take accountability. If they feel a certain way, they at least can speak their mind in any form, texting, phone call, can show up and talk to each other, compared to another relationship where they just go day by day. If something bothers them, oh, it's okay. Oh, it's okay. Oh, how many times can you say it's okay before something is not okay? You know what I mean? You're just building a bridge and putting fucking explosives on it and just waiting to hit that detonator. Like, it's like, but I don't know. I really enjoy this book. Like, it really it breaks everything down in fine detail and it like helps you understand things.
Yeah, definitely. Next,
You're not talking to the mic.
Good point. My next point is on page 270. If anybody has any before that.
I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah, I'm like 276.
Okay. On 270, it says there's a story for children. There's no such thing as a dragon by Jack Kent.
Are you gonna read the whole story?
No.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
No. But it kind of talks about how the son notices there's a dragon in his room, brings it up to his mom. His mom just says there's no dragon. You guys know the story. But it kind of comes over here, and I read this to my dad. I said, check this out. Maybe that's the moral of many, many stories. Chaos emerges in a household bit by bit. Mutual unhappiness and resentment pile up. Everything untidy is swept under the rug where the dragon feasts on its crumbs. But no one says anything as the shared society and negotiated order of the household reveals itself as inadequate or disintegrates in the face of the unexpected and threatening. Everybody whistles in the dark instead. Communication would require admission of terrible emotions: resentment, terror, loneliness, despair, jealousy, frustration, hatred, and boredom. Moment by moment, it's easier to keep the peace, but in the background, in Billy Bixby's house, and in all that are like it, the dragon grows. One day it bursts forth in a form that no one can ignore, and it lifts the very household from its foundations. And so I read that to my dad, and he, my dad is always just kind of like the guy that's like, but literally that's the story of what happened in my household this year.
Yeah.
Like everybody thought it was all cool. You know what I mean? Sweep things under the rug, keep sweeping things under the rug, and the dragon blew up the house off of its foundation for real.
Same. Yeah, that's how it was for mine too. Like looking back on this, like the dragon could just be like how everybody feels towards my mom, and it just never got handled. And then now it's like a serious, like my dad's like, nah. Because like to me, listening to my dad, there's a lot of things that maybe my mom, like just things could have been like, hey, we're pinpointing, like we said, right? Like we're being precise, like this is what's bothering us. Let's work on this. But conversation really didn't happen. And now it's like shit's hitting the fan really fast. And now like it's just different. You know what I mean?
Don't ever underestimate the destructive power of sins of omission. It's literally what that is.
Yep. That's I highlighted that one too.
And I was thinking about what you just said, you know, it never really got handled. And like now I know the conversation that you try to have with your mom isn't always like the easiest, or she's not very receptive of it. And like, I think being receptive to it would just take like, some people, you know, take time to learn how to do it, you know? And it's because like maybe that type of conversation was never done in the past. It's not like very plausible for it to be happening right now in the future when things that's like at their climax.
It just doesn't. Yeah.
She's had no practice doing it, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just, she's like, of course I'm not going to listen. And it's just like back to like the maintenance thing, you know?
Now these things, like that's how it's been like until I started like for real, like meeting with you guys. You know, now I'm learning all these things, and now it's like me trying to have that conversations is like very like a brick wall sometimes because it is a learned behavior to be that way. Like she literally can't be receptive because it's been going on for such a long time that she didn't have to be.
Like decades.
No one forced her to be receptive or like did that. Yeah. So I get you.
Yeah. You know, going off of that and kind of just something I like in the book too, and I mentioned it earlier, specify, like, I think it's good that you sat down with your family and like you specified what's success and like what's failure. And like, you know, success would be like, hey, Dante gets his license and stuff like that. Right here he goes. Because while you are failing to define success and thereby rendering it impossible, you are also refusing to define failure. So, you know, you can't say this is what success looks like, then you can never say, oh, I'm failing. You know, just like, I'm not failing, I'm just doing it. You know, and you're like, well, you're not winning. Right. So if you're not winning, what does that make? What are you doing?
Yeah, Jordan Peterson always talks about that in his videos, where he says a lot of people don't even like to make planners and goal lists and to set up for a future, like a year from now, what do you want to achieve? Some people, he states that some people don't like doing that because they're afraid of the failure. They're afraid of letting themselves down. He says to people, like he's specifically talking to the audience, he's like, so wouldn't you rather know that you failed willingly, knowing that you failed in your mind, rather than blindly failing over and over and over again without ever acknowledging it?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? You're just moving through the fog without ever acknowledging that you're failing. Right. Rather than having a clear path, you got to that path and your finish line, you're not there yet. It's further ahead and you got to keep going.
And then going off that one more time, just back to that conversation you're having with your family, you know, it's like damaged machinery will continue to malfunction if its problems are neither diagnosed nor fixed. Mm-hmm. So what you did was like a diagnostic test with your family. You're like, this is what's going on. How are we going to fix this? You know? Mm-hmm. But if you didn't diagnose that and like put that out in the open and like make it like real life, you know, if you didn't speak it, no, because like our words have power. It comes from chaos. If you didn't draw and speak it into the real world, it would have never been defined.
But I don't know. I feel like we tackled this chapter very well. Mm-hmm. Unless you guys got other stuff that you guys want to talk about.
I got one last thing at the very end of the thing that I just liked. Just a part of the book I highlighted. If anyone else has got anything, I just go. Random wandering will not move you forward. It will disappoint and frustrate you and make you anxious and unhappy and hard to get along with, and then resentful and then vengeful and then worse. So, you know, that's why I like how we say, you know, what are we aiming for? What are our goals? Because if we're just aimlessly wandering, then we wake up one day and we're like, why don't I have a girlfriend? Why does my job pay enough? Well, you know, like, why aren't I driving the car that I want? Why aren't I fucking and sucking? It's just like, I don't know, man. Like, what were you shooting for the whole time? Yeah.
And were you even shooting at all?
Were you even shooting at all? Yeah. Maybe you fucking never took your gun out of the holster. You never shot your shot.
I like the part, I don't know if we talked about it on 278. I thought this was the most fire paragraph. When things fall apart and chaos reemerges, we can give structure to it and reestablish order through our speech. And I think that sentence like is a great example of what he's talking about in this chapter. You know, reestablishing that order in amongst chaos.
Right.
If we speak carefully and precisely, we can sort things out and put them in their proper place and set a new goal and navigate to it. Often communally, if we negotiate, if we reach consensus. Yeah. Fire.
I actually don't know what's is it communally?
What page? 278. Communally, like together,
as a group.
Oh, I thought it was commonly. I was like, why they put you right there? Who put that you right there?
I think of like a church or something like that, you know?
Like community.
They do stuff together.
Yeah.
You have to consciously define the topic of a conversation, particularly when it is difficult or it becomes about everything and everything is too much.
I thought that was really good, where it's like, if you don't define it, then when you're having an argument, it's like everything prior that's happened and everything in the future that will happen that you can like, you know, maybe foresee is in the argument. It's like, no. Let's just precisely talk about the thing at hand, not counting the past and not going to count like what might happen. Just let's talk about what the right now, this particular thing. But if you're arguing about everything, then it's not fair.
That's a great thing for relationships.
Yeah.
Because it'd be like that.
Hell yeah. And like you start getting your feelings hurt and you're like, you start bringing up the past and you're like, oh, how does that even fucking like...
Let me get in my time machine real quick.
yeah. That shit already happened and I thought we were cool in that shit. Can we talk about what's going on right now? And it's like, but you're still butthurt because it was never really solved. You never really like inflated your tire.
All right.